You're listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, episode number 42.
Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Hey there, welcome back to the Nourished Child Podcast. I'm Jill Castle, your host, and I am hosting this little show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of raising them. Not easy to raise healthy kids in today's world. Today, we are talking about milk alternatives. So if you've been perusing the grocery store and checking out the milk aisle, either in the refrigerator section or just down the regular aisle, you have not been able to miss the fact that there are so many different milk alternatives or options for milk for children and for adults, quite frankly. So today in this show, what I want to do is sort of go through the most popular or the most frequently used and purchased milk alternatives and sort of digest those, if you will, and talk about pros and cons of each and every one of them so that you have a better understanding of which milk alternative might be the best for your child. I have no affiliation with any of these products. My goal is to help you make the best decision given your circumstances and your family for your child. So that's what we will be talking about today, milk alternatives. This is episode number 42. And you'll be able to find the show notes over at jillcastle.com/042. Hard to believe, but I am recording this on a Saturday morning. This is the first time I've recorded a podcast on a Saturday morning. I'm usually pretty diligent about preserving my weekends for family and fun time, but gotten a little bit behind this week. I was actually in Iowa on Tuesday speaking to the Iowa Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Shout out to those folks there. Super nice, super warm, super welcoming group of dietitians and nutrition professionals out there. And then I came back to Connecticut and presented on the stage of TEDx Danbury. So that was my first time ever presenting at a TEDx event. And it was a blast. It was also probably one of the most scary, intimidating speaking engagements I've ever done. And that is mostly because it's a storytelling presentation. It is bearing your idea worth spreading and putting it out in the world. And that's pretty intimidating. So I will be happy to share that as that video rolls out probably in the next month or so. But my title of my talk was The Nutrition Prescription for Healthier Kids. And some of you might immediately think that I talked about food balance and healthy food, but a little teaser, I did not talk about food. So I'm anxious to share my idea with you when that video is up and running. I have some new reviews on the podcast. Well, one new review, and I just want to share it because I always love getting reviews. And if you're a listener and are so inclined to share your review of the show, that helps me a lot. And I would love to read that and share it on the podcast. So I have to give a shout out to Kiwi and Beth. They left a review in mid-September. So as a registered dietitian and mother of two boys, I've enjoyed listening to all the knowledge, advice, and information Jill shares in how to feed and nourish our kids well. The variety of guest speakers is very engaging, as well as the practical how-to for everyday life and feeding our kids. Thank you for all the hard work that goes into making a quality, go-to resource on such a large variety of relevant childhood nutrition topics. Thank you so much, Kiwi and Beth. That super energizes me to keep on going and keep bringing topics to you that you want to hear about. So with that said, I would love for you to let me know if you have a topic you want to hear about or a guest in mind that would be great for the show. Email me at jill@jillcastle.com. Let me know who that person might be or what that topic might be. Again, today we're talking about milk alternatives. I just want to put out there that I will not be talking about every single milk alternative under the sun, because that area of food is just booming and growing, and there's a lot of products rolling out onto the market. There are a lot of products to keep track of. So I won't be including everything, but I am trying to highlight for you the most popular or the most frequently purchased milk alternatives on the market. So I will say a little bit about cow's milk as sort of the reference standard, I guess, to which a lot of these milk alternatives compare themselves to. And it's the model by which many of them try to achieve a nutrient balance or a similar nutrient balance in their alternative combinations. So I will talk a little bit about milk. And I will also be talking about all these other ones. And just to give you a little idea, we'll talk about soy milk, rice milk, hemp milk, nut milks, coconut milk, pea milk, oat milk, flax milk. And I'll try then to end the show with what I call the bottom line. And I'll break things down into nutrients to consider, cost, practicality, and those sort of things. There is a free chart, downloadable chart that I've created of alternative milks. So if you go to the show notes, you will be able to grab that free download. It's called a milk comparison guide, and it will highlight the major milk alternatives that I'm talking about today. Again, you can find that over on www.jillcastle.com/042. Okay, let's get into milk alternatives. Which one is the best for your child? Well, I can't tell you what the best is because you're going to have to make that decision, but I'm hoping to make that decision-making process a little bit easier for you. So making a decision about milk isn't always straightforward. Sure, many families choose to include dairy or cow's milk in their daily routine, but what if your child has an allergy to cow's milk, or an allergy to soy milk, or an allergy to nuts? What if your family is opting to follow a vegetarian diet? Or what if you want the best for your child, but you just aren't sure what that really is? Milk nutrition comparisons are tedious, and the information isn't always easy to find. I can tell you, I have scoured the labels of many different types of milk alternatives, and even within the types, such as like a rice milk, for example, there are several different brands, and the compilation of what is in that milk, it varies from brand to brand. Let's face it, the milk or fortified beverage you choose for your child is an important decision. It's also a personal decision that can reflect your cultural considerations, your core beliefs, your flavor preferences, and any medical conditions your child might have. So to make the best decision for your child, you do need to understand milk nutrition, especially how milk and fortified beverages fit into your child's diet, and which one best complements the foods that your child actually eats. The younger the child, the more dependent he or she will be on the milk beverage you choose as an important source of nutrition. For example, young toddlers, those who are 1 to 2 years of age, continue to have or do have unique nutritional requirements that are different from those of older children and adults, including the fact that they need higher fat and higher nutrients in their diet because their body weight is so low. So that proportion of nutrient to body weight is an important consideration. They also need sufficient calories for growth. And remember, their tummies are tiny, so lots of fruits and vegetables, while those are wonderful and we want to see that happen, those are low-calorie foods. And so young children really need a calorie punch for the volume of food that they're eating because they fill up fast. Also, for most young children, the liquids they drink provide a major source of nutrition throughout the day. Now, as kids get older, they rely less on liquid nutrition and more on solid food for their nutrients. The diet shifts to meals consisting of food groups, and the focus becomes more of a food balance or a total diet balance goal. balance is the key word here because nutrients like calcium and vitamin D remain very important throughout a growing child's lifespan, and especially up through adolescence because we know that peak bone development is happening up to really those young adult years, like 19 or 20 years of age. And if you want to learn more about healthy bone growth in children, check out episode number 18. That would be jillcastle.com/018. That episode is all about healthy bone growth in children. Believe it or not, many children don't get enough calcium and vitamin D, according to the 2015 Dietary Guidelines for Americans. As such, these nutrients and meeting the requirement for them deserves a little more attention so that kids can attain a nutritious diet that benefits their growth and development and especially their bone health. It's important to select food and beverages with calcium and vitamin D in mind and balance the overall diet to meet your child's nutrient needs. So, for example, if you choose cow's milk in your family diet, you still need to make sure your child's getting calcium and vitamin D from other sources in the diet because 3 cups, which is the recommended intake, 3 cups of dairy won't meet the requirement for vitamin D or for calcium in the older child and teen. So even though we say 3 cups of dairy a day, the implication is that, we'll meet my child's needs for vitamin D and calcium, but you won't unless your child is eating other sources of calcium and vitamin D rich foods. So we'll get into that a little bit, and I have a couple of resources on my blog that really do dig into how much calcium does your child need and how can you meet those needs with liquid nutrition as well as solid food nutrition. And I actually have a downloadable ebook on my website called The Calcium Handbook. And I do talk a lot about vitamin D in that book as well, but particularly, how to strike the right amount of calcium and vitamin D in your child's diet, including milk or a milk alternative, but also looking at other foods that round out your child's total daily needs. If you select a milk alternative such as rice, almond, cashew, or coconut milk, you need to pay more attention to other protein and fat sources in your child's diet because these nutrients are in low supply in these types of beverages. So the most important thing when deciding which milk or fortified beverage to give your child is that you make an informed decision. The drink you decide on must contribute and complement your child's nutrient intake. So the big question is, which milk is the best? And I'm afraid to say it all depends. Personally, I'm a big fan of traditional milk for taste and nutrient composition and even cost, but that's my dietitian brain talking, and that's what my family likes to consume. If you open my refrigerator door right now, you would see I have a lot of lactose-free milk in my refrigerator. I have whole milk, I have low-fat milk, and I have chocolate milk. I have a growing teenage boy, as many of you know, and he happens to be lactose intolerant. So we've all switched over to lactose-free milk, and we use Fairlife milk. Again, I'm not compensated for saying that. I'm just telling you what's in my refrigerator. But other families have other criteria, and I understand that and want to acknowledge that you don't have to do cow's milk, but I do want you to make the best decision for your child. And that's going to depend on your own criteria. So from coconut milk to cashew milk, I've outlined the most popular and widely available sources here to help you decide. So my filter for choosing the right milk option for my client will consider their food preferences, their beliefs, their cultural desires, their child's nutrient needs, and then I'm going to look at the nutrient content of the milk, the number of ingredients that are included, the cost of the milk, how much added sugar is there. So I use a pretty holistic filter when helping families decide which milk is best. As a reference point, talk about dairy milk first. It's what I consider the gold standard. It's cow's milk. It's been around forever and way longer than any of the alternative milks. So, in the eyes of the American Academy of Pediatrics, cow's milk, when included with a variety of foods, can support the growth and development of children. The fat content in milk determines the difference between whole milk, 2% milk, 1% milk, and fat-free or skim milk. At 1 year of age, it is recommended that babies transition to whole cow's milk. At 2 years of age, the American Academy of Pediatrics advocates a decrease in milk fat to 2% cow's milk, and as your child ages, further decreases to 1% or fat-free milk might be advisable depending on the family history of cardiovascular disease or obesity. In terms of milk fat, I personally am a fan of using whatever the child enjoys drinking. So unless, if you have a healthy, growing, developing child, I'm a fan of whole milk or 2% milk for most children. Now, again, if there are particular medical conditions that we need to help out with, there might be a reduction in fat content of the milk, but that reduction doesn't make a huge difference in calorie content, but it does make a difference in total fat content. All varieties of cow's milk are a good source of protein, calcium, and vitamins A and D. If you have a child who's lactose intolerant, a lactose-free cow's milk may be ideal. Those nutrients are preserved in a lactose-free option. I will also mention that dairy milk only has 3 ingredients. It's milk, and it gets fortified with vitamins A and vitamin D. And there's about 100 IUs, international units of vitamin D, per cup of milk, and about 300 milligrams of calcium. Again, that is all in that free download of the milk comparison guide, which you can get over on the website in the show notes, jillcastle.com/042. So soy milk, let's talk about soy milk. And it's a vegetarian option, obviously. Soy milk is an alternative to cow's milk. It's utilized for children who are intolerant or allergic to cow's milk, or for those who are following a vegetarian diet. Research indicates that about 40% of children who are allergic to cow's milk are also allergic to soy milk. So keep that in mind if you're looking for something for your child who might be dairy allergic. Soy milk is fortified with calcium and vitamin D and can provide adequate protein and calories for growing children over the age of a year. Soy milk is processed to match the nutrient content of cow's milk, although some versions provide higher levels of protein. Sugar may be added to soy milk in the flavored versions to mask the bitter taste of soy. I do get questions about the use of soy products in girls and boys. According to the American Institute for Cancer Research, moderate soy consumption, up to 2 servings per day of whole soy foods, is safe. That was hard to say. 1 serving of soy averages about 7 grams of protein and 25 milligrams of isoflavones. Furthermore, scientists now know that soy does not increase estrogen levels in humans, nor does it feminize men. You can head over to the American Institute for Cancer Research. I'll include the link in the show notes to read more about that if you have questions about it. Rice milk, also a vegetarian option. It can be used in children who are allergic to both cow and soy milks, or as a milk substitute in the vegetarian child. Rice milk contains low amounts of protein, fat, and calories, and requires thoughtful meal planning, especially for toddlers who generally need more of these nutrients. It's fortified with vitamin D and may contain added sugar. Again, any of these milks that contain added sugar tend to be the flavored version. And all of these milks, if I recall correctly, have an unflavored version as well. Some research has shown evidence of growth failure in young children consuming rice milk due to its poor protein, fat, calorie, and vitamin mineral content. If it is necessary for your young child to consume rice milk, like because of a food allergy, just be sure to consult with a registered dietitian or your pediatrician so that you can give proper attention to making sure that the rest of your child's diet is meeting his nutrient needs. Hemp milk is also a vegetarian option. It's a grain-based milk made from the cannabis plant. It contains omega-3 fatty acids and is also a source of iron, B12, vitamin B12, magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D. Now, it's made from the cannabis plant, but it is not toxic or dangerous to humans. It's not the same. It's not the same part of the plant that we often think of for marijuana or any of that kind of thing. It's a different part of the plant, so there's no worries there. Flavored hemp milk is similar in calorie density or calorie content to whole cow's milk and soy milk, but carries a punch of added sugar, about 14 grams per cup. The unflavored variety is considerably lower in calories. Protein and fat content are lower than cow's milk, but higher than other grain-based milk. I've used hemp milk with some of my clients because it gives a little bit of a nicer punch of protein and nutrients than some of the other milk alternatives. Again, if your head is starting to spin with all these details of all these different milks, just remember there is a free guide, a free download on my show notes on my website that you can use to help you sort of summarize all of these alternatives and look at them side by side and compare them. What about nut milks like cashew and almond milk? And I'm just doing a general category here because there are a lot of different nut milks on the market. They are a vegetarian option. Nut milks such as almond and cashew also tend to be low in protein and fat. And I know that in our minds, we think that nuts are a great source of protein, and they can be, but in nut milks, we don't see a lot of protein content in those milks. Nut milks should not be offered to children who have a nut allergy. Almond milk has a very low protein content, only about a gram per cup, and it tends to be low in calories, but has the nutrients vitamin E and vitamin B12 in it. It may also be fortified with calcium and vitamin D. You want to check the label. Most of the brands that are out there I see are fortified, but you do want to check the labels. Cashew milk showcases a similar nutrient profile to almond milk. Another alternative is coconut milk. The carton version of coconut milk is a low to no protein dairy alternative, depending on the brand, and it is made from blending coconut water with the liquid extracted from grated coconut flesh. Its fat content is similar to whole cow's milk, and it boasts some decent levels of vitamin B12. Generally, dairy aisle coconut milk is low in calories. A new kind of milk that I've added to the list is pea milk. You might recognize it as the brand Ripple. Again, it's also vegetarian because it's made from yellow peas, and it boasts equal protein to cow's milk. It offers up omega-3 fats, a hefty dose of both calcium and vitamin D, even more than cow's milk. So that is a nice alternative, I think, for those children who are unable to have dairy or soy, and they're looking for a real close comparison to the nutrient quality of a cow's milk. Oat milk is also similar in nutrient composition to rice milk. It's low in protein and calories and has considerable added sugar. Flax milk. As far as alternative milks go, flax milk is in the same boat with almond, cashew, and coconut milks. Virtually no protein content. However, it does have a decent dose of heart-healthy omega-3 fats. So you can see there are so many different categories of alternative milks. They have their high points and they have their low points. And I'm not passing judgment on any of them. I think that, if you're trying to choose the right milk for your child, you want to think about how old your child is and what his nutrient needs are for growth and development. You want to consider whether your child has medical condition you need to pay attention to or food allergies, any of that might require elimination of certain types of milk or inclusion of specific nutrient compositions. And you got to think about your family food practices. Today's families have a variety of different milks in their refrigerator. Some families have cow's milk and almond milk and rice milk and all kinds of different milks that they have in their refrigerator to serve all the different requirements and flavor preferences that their family has. And that's okay. I think the most important thing for children is to choose the milk or fortified beverage that best meets your child's nutritional needs and his taste preferences. Because remember, if your child's not drinking it, he's not getting those nutrients. So it's not really nutrition for your child unless your child consumes it. So again, I have a milk comparison guide that's free. You can get it on my show notes on my website, jillcastle.com/042. And I would just add a couple of pearls of wisdom for you. Number one, again, like I said, my filter is, what does the child need? And what does the milk alternative provide? And how can I match those most closely? The other thing is you have the rest of your child's diet to fill in gaps that might exist. I don't encourage anybody to completely rely on their milk beverage in their child's diet to give everything their child needs in terms of calcium and vitamin D or other nutrients. It's the composition of a whole balanced diet that is the key to meeting your child's nutritional requirements. So figure out which milk best does that for your child. The other thing is cost. When you look at cost comparisons, cow's milk is one of the least expensive milks per cup in terms of price point when you compare it to other alternative milks. When you get into nut milks and rice, those prices go up. Some of those specialty milks are fairly expensive. So if cost is a consideration, that's another thing you want to think about. Nutrients. What are the nutrients that milk provides, and are they absorbable? We call that bioavailability. So once you consume the product, are the nutrients well absorbed and well utilized? Some of the alternative milks, the calcium, the vitamin D they are fortified with, it settles to the bottom. So if you are using a rice milk or a nut milk, shake it up before you pour it, just to make sure that all those added nutrients get distributed throughout the milk. Ingredients. Some of these milks don't taste so great in and of themselves. So manufacturers may doctor them up with added sugar. And so that can be a primary consideration. Some of these alternative milks have quite a bit of sugar in them. So you want to think about that. And you also want to look at the ingredient label. I'm a huge fan of, the fewest ingredients, the better. And I'm also a fan of, looking at the label and just assessing, do you recognize what these ingredients are? Some alternative milks have a long list of ingredients. So just be cognizant of that and consider that. Maybe that part doesn't matter to you, and that's totally fine. I like to personally look at the ingredient list. Remember, with ingredients, the first item on the list is the highest volume of ingredient in the product. So I think I've summarized that. Nutrients, cost, ingredients, your child's nutritional needs, and what is your child really eating? So you could be serving all these great alternative milks. If your child's not drinking it, then you got a lot of ground to make up with some of these other nutrients we've talked about, especially the bone nutrients and the protein, which is essential for children to grow well. So it is a big picture topic. It is not easy to make that decision for your child, but as always, I want you to be as informed as possible and to come at it with knowledge and an ability to make a good decision for your family based on what your needs are, your values, what your child needs, and what your child is willing to actually consume. I'll ask your forgiveness for not including every single milk on the planet in this downloadable guide and in this show. But again, I just wanted to give you some of the highlights. I recognize there are other things out there like goat's milk and sheep milk, and there's some other products that are there that I have not included. So don't be offended if your milk was not included in the show. I apologize, but I really tried to hit the highlights and the high marks of what is being consumed by the consumer and what is out there, and so that I can serve most of people's curiosity and needs. Again, I appreciate you tuning into the show. It's always a joy to hear from you as a listener, and I enjoy those reviews that you make if you have the time to do it. It certainly does help the Nourish Child podcast grow, especially if you can write a review on iTunes. I would love for you to go to jillcastle.com/042, grab that free chart of alternative milks so you can have the info that you need to make the best choice for you and your family. As always, thank you for joining me today on this early Saturday morning. I'm so glad you were here. Please be sure to give the child in your life, big or small, a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourish Child podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.